The month of June is done. It is finished. There is one question to ask. What did I watch in June? So yeah, in June, I watched quite a few films in June. I kicked off the month with watching Saw. Now I think Saw is a really good horror film. I think it's held up really well. I love the detective cop aspect to the film. I think that was really kind of the driving force of the movie for me when I first saw it. The two men trapped in the bathroom is interesting because you're slowly revealed how things kind of piece together, and it's obviously got that wonderful ending that nobody saw coming. No one saw him get off that floor. Saw still holds up. I still love it. I think it's fantastic. The next film I watched was probably, looking at my letterbox right now, probably is the best film of the month that I watched, really, which was Joker. Joker for me was an expertly made character study of this dude who clearly has mental issues, and basically about society really pushing him to his breaking point, and then he does some horrendous things. There's a moral quandary with this film because you know he is doing horrible things, murder and stuff like that. I know for me anyway, I somewhat kind of, that little piece of me kind of roots for him, and that's where it does kind of like play with your morals a little bit, because you can kind of see it from his point of view, where society just beating him down to the point where he has no choice but to make noise and make a statement, and that is unfortunately led to him killing people. Amazing movie, wonderfully acted by Joaquin Phoenix, and yeah, I loved it. I thought it's one of the best comic book films ever made, in my opinion. Absolutely astoundingly well made. So yeah, Joker was incredible. Next up, I watched Saw 2, continuing the Saw journey, of course. Saw 2 for me is better than the first movie. I've always thought it was. I think it's a really entertaining sequel, a very well made sequel. I love where it takes place in this kind of abandoned, rundown house, and they've got to basically do these tests to find antidotes for this poison that they've been breathing in. I think it's a really well made sequel. I think it's better than the first one. The thing that makes Saw 2 even better is that you get Tobin Bell as John Kramer as Jigsaw in the film for a good amount of screen time. His presence and his acting ability really makes this film go from good to great. The way he delivers that line, "Oh yes, there will be blood," like it gives me goosebumps every time he does that line in that film. It's so great. So yeah, Saw 2 was on the docket. I love that movie. It's awesome. Next up, we have the first of many aquatic horror films that I watched this month. I watched Humanoids from the Deep. I had a lot of fun with this film. It is a really sleazy, gory, aquatic horror film from the 80s that basically tells the tale of these fishmen coming out from the deep and preying upon the young women of this, harbour kind of town, and it gets kind of rapey. It's super rapey, unfortunately, but it's all implied. I just think it's got some great, exciting moments in the film. It's really kind of quite gory as well, and it's got an ending that I was just like, holy shit! The ending is one of the highlight moments of this film. The ending 2 minutes of this movie is like, whoa. Like, it's really good. Have you seen Humanoids of the Deep? Let me know. It is a sleazy, fun slasher film from the 80s, brought to you by Roger Corman, because of course it is. Yeah, so Humanoids from the Deep is a great movie that I really enjoyed. Need to check out the remake. There's a 90s remake. I might have to check it out. Continuing this aquatic horror film theme almost, I watched Piranha 3D, but I didn't watch it in 3D. I watched it in 2D. I have a lot of fun with this film. It is, again, it's sleazy. It's gory in all the right ways. It needed to be gory. I'm glad it kind of kept with this just gritty goriness to it. And it's got Kelly Brooks, and I'm like, yes, please, all day long. She is stunning in this movie. It brings me to a point that Piranha 3D is a film that came out in 2009. Obviously, the landscape of society and things have changed a lot since then, and Piranha 3D, I don't think they'll ever make a film like this again. Like I said, it's very sleazy. There's a lot of nudity, full frontal nudity. The women in the film are literally there to be sexualized objects, which is unfortunate, but that's just the reality of this film, and that's why I don't think this film would ever be able to be made now. The way society is it would pretty much be like, no fucking way are we having that kind of movie out now. But I have a lot of fun with this film. I think it's good old fun. I like where the piranha in it, I kind of almost like prehistoric piranha. I really like this film. It's fun. I even like the sequel, Piranha 3 Double D. That's really fun as well. I need to get that at some point. But anyway, moving on. Mostly creature features on this list at the moment. I watched Gremlins in preparation for the podcast, Monsters on the Loose. You can see that on the channel. I love Gremlins. I think it's a perfectly paced, in my opinion, movie. The only thing I would kind of cut out is Kate's monologue about the way her dad died. I think that is unnecessarily. I understand it's meant to be really tongue-in-cheek kind of humour, really dark humour. But I think it kind of almost brings the film to a halt when you get to that point in the movie, and they could have easily cut that out, and I think the film would have benefited from that in terms of its pacing. But I love Gremlins. I love the design. I love everything about the characters. I love it all. It's just one of those timeless movies that you can watch over and over again, and it's great. Gremlins is awesome. It's 9 out of 10 for me. Yeah, awesome movie. I rewatched Godzilla vs Kong on 4K. The 4K of Godzilla vs Kong is probably the best 4K disc I own. It looks absolutely incredible, and I implore everybody who has the means to play 4K to watch that movie in 4K, because I think it is the way it is meant to be presented, because the colours are unbelievable, the CG is next level in my opinion, and the whole movie is a fun monster movie for 100 minutes. And I think it's exactly what we needed for that kind of movie. Glad it was just shy of 2 hours. You know, it was good that it kind of condensed it down just to shy of 2 hours. I think it was necessary. Godzilla vs Kong is a wonderful 4K. The 4K release is unbelievably good quality. Like, the picture is unbelievably good. The Hong Kong sequence in the third act, it looks vibrant. It looks amazing. HDR is on full display in that disc. So I highly recommend Godzilla vs Kong in 4K. Put on something for nostalgia purposes, right? And this was the Simpsons movie, because I ain't seen it in a long time, and we had the DVD copy downstairs, so I stuck that on. And you know what? I had a really fun time with that movie. It's still really funny to this day. I still found myself laughing my head off. Homer being Homer, one of the highlights in the movie. It held up. I had a good time with it. I thought it was fun. I think I could watch it again and have another good time. Yeah, Simpsons movie. Let me know if you've rewatched that. It's been a while for me, and I had a really fun time with Simpsons movie. Next up is a film that I've taken the longest time to get to. You probably saw my thoughts on it recently, which is MidSummer. MidSummer for me is a fantastic, slow burn psychological drama that really digs deep into grief, relationships, and of course cult-like traditions. And I think it blends those three things together so well. Like I said in my review, the opening 10 minutes of this film are absolutely harrowingly bleak and heart-wrenchingly sad. And I just think all the performances are bang on. The only negative I would say about MidSummer is I don't like any of the characters. Danny is somewhat passable in the film because she's meant to be this almost this kind of the only good person in the group of Americans that go to this commune, but other than her, really everyone else just suck. But I think that's the point. So I do recommend MidSummer. I think it's outstanding. I know it's a very divisive film, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I think I enjoy it more than Hereditary, which is saying a lot because I loved Hereditary. Will I rewatch MidSummer? Maybe not, but I've had people recommend that it actually gets better after subsequent viewing. So maybe it's a film that I need to rewatch, but I might get the 4K and then rewatch it on 4K, because I think this film is going to look unbelievable in 4K because the cinematography and the beauty of the shots in this film are unbelievable. So 4K and HDR, yes please sir. Next up is a film I picked up in a charity shop because it intrigued me. It was called The Ugly, and I wasn't expecting anything. I thought it was going to be utter dog shit, if I'm honest with you, but it ended up being a fantastic indie horror film that I just recommend wholeheartedly. It's a very low budget production. You can tell it didn't cost much to make. It's from New Zealand as well, so it's a New Zealand horror film. I think it's got great acting. I think the acting is pretty great. I was really invested in the story it was being told. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's a typical kind of reporter trying to get information from a serial killer, have him recount why he killed these people and how he killed these people. I just think it was very engrossing from start to finish. I was invested straight away, and it's just a really good 90-minute movie. I thought it was great. So I recommend The Ugly. If you can find it on any streaming services, if you can find it in any way, I really recommend it. It's very good. I'm happy I picked up the DVD when I did, because it's one of those really kind of obscure films that is only available on DVD that probably nobody talks about, no one knows about. And that's what I love about charity shops, because that's where I got it from. That's why I love charity shops, because you stumble across these very obscure films that no one really knows about, or it doesn't really have any presence online in terms of anyone talking about it, and it ends up being fantastic. So yeah, The Ugly, highly recommended. Very good indie horror from the 90s. It's great. It is really good. Next up, I picked up Bram Stoker's Dracula from a charity shop on DVD, because it's something I hadn't seen before, and I didn't really care about spending out more money than I had to view it. So I picked it up on DVD, free for £1 in the charity shop, and my word, what a great film this is. They've got the look of this story well. It's this gothic, grandiose gothic look. It looks great. Gary Oldman is unbelievably good as Dracula in this film. He is bang on the money. Very well acted. It's got this kind of like creeping atmosphere in there. It's just wonderful. And I love this film. I thought it was great. There's some great moments in it. The only negative I would have would be Keanu Reeves' British accent isn't very good. But aside from that, I thought this was a brilliant film and a great Dracula movie. Next up, I watched a show on Netflix that I've been waiting for like a year. And that will be Godzilla Singular Point. Now, Godzilla Singular Point, for me, I'm a bit mixed on it, because it's got a lot of those anime tropes, because it is a Japanese anime series, just put out there, on Netflix. It does follow a lot of anime tropes. That could be good if you're into anime and you kind of understand those tropes and you get those tropes. It could be good. But when it's a Godzilla property, Godzilla feels almost like an afterthought. It goes into science to the point where I was confused for a lot of the time. There's a lot of science talk and a lot of like highbrow science talk in this series, and it kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. A lot of dialogue about physics and how particles and atoms kind of work to basically build our reality. It's very weird and very confusing. I thought the characters were really good. I really like the characters. When it gets to the kaiju action's pretty cool. I pretty much liked all the designs for the kaiju. Rodan looked cool, and Gyrius looked fucking badass, and Godzilla was awesome as well. But they're barely in this show. This show's more about this whole science kind of storyline. It's very confusing to me. I fairly enjoyed it, but I was mixed on the story. I feel like it was this really in-depth science kind of scientific narrative first, and a Godzilla story second. It shouldn't have really been called a Godzilla thing, but is what it is. Would I recommend it? If you like Godzilla and you like anime, maybe it's worth checking out, yeah, but it really lost me when it really got deep into the science stuff. It really lost me. Next up, I watched what a lot of people would consider to be one of the worst sequels of all time. Recently picked up the 88 Films Blu-ray release of this film. That will be James Cameron's Piranha 2, The Spawning. Now, this film is fairly poorly made. You can tell it's not the best made film. But did I like it? Yeah, I fairly enjoyed it. It's nowhere near as bad as people proclaim it to be. Nowhere near as bad. It was a big surprise because I wasn't expecting much for this film. I looked on Rotten Tomatoes and it was like 6% Rotten Tomatoes score. My expectations was as low as possible. But I fairly enjoyed this movie. I thought all the cast were very likeable. And when it gets into like the piranha carnage, it's fairly satisfying piranha carnage. Sure, the piranhas can fly. It's a bit silly, I know. But I thought it was just a fairly fun, dumb, aquatic horror film. You can clearly see didn't have much of a budget to be made. Would I watch it again? Probably, yeah. I fairly enjoyed it. Have you seen Piranha 2? I know a lot of people don't like this movie. But I can understand people seeing it as a bad film. I can see it. You can tell it's kind of poorly made. But for me, I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is. I fairly enjoyed it for what it was. What it is a dumb, silly, flying piranha horror film. And I thought it was really fun. Probably the best flying piranha movie ever made. From the words of James Cameron himself, that is. So yeah, Piranha 2, I enjoyed it. Nowhere near as bad as people say, in my opinion. But opinions will be opinions, so it is what it is. The final film that I watched in June was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I didn't really like this movie. I felt that the pacing was all over the place, and it felt like the film could not wait to get to the end. There wasn't much time for the narrative to really kind of breathe life into the film for me. No pun intended, of course. I will say the whole final act of this film is the best part of the film for me. I thought I started to really enjoy it once Frankenstein's monster turns up at Victor's home and carnage ensues. I thought that from that point to the end of the film, I thought that was the strongest part of the movie. The first 2 acts do, for me, kind of rush. The pacing is a bit rushed when it should have knew when to slow down a little bit. And the other positive I have for this film is probably Robert De Niro as Frankenstein's monster. He puts in a really great performance as that character, and yeah, he's probably one of the best parts of the film. But overall, I don't know if I would watch it again. I just feel like those first 2 acts, just erratic pacing to the point of where, like, before you know it, it's like, you know, you've already got the monster coming alive, and I'm just like, well, they could have slowed down a little bit and built it up a bit more. I didn't feel they built to that point properly. It was just rush. Oh yeah, now we've got the monster. Just my opinion, guys. What did you think about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? Did you like it? Wasn't for me, unfortunately. Aside from that final act and Robert De Niro's performance, the rest of the film was, like I said, bogged down with erratic pacing. Those are the films that I watched in the month of June. What did you watch in June? Be sure to let me know down below in the comments. As always, if you like what you see here and want to see more, and you're new to this channel, maybe become a subscriber and maybe subscribe. Hit the like button as well for the YouTube algorithm, because it's the best way to get my videos out to the YouTube world, as they say. As always, guys, I have been Jason, and I have already started watching some cool stuff for July.